So last week I went to Wyoming, so I wasn't here. And I got to spend a lot of time in mountains and cattle, and I enjoyed it very much. Has anybody been there? Wyoming. All right. Which part did you go? Did you go to Yellowstone by any chance? I didn't go to Yellowstone. I just was there for work and I came right back. So it was kind of a shame, right? It's like I didn't really see much. I went to a coffee shop, I went to a burger place, and that's about it. That's pretty sad. And you went fundraising. Well, that's actually better than what I did. I was doing my own version of fundraising, just making money. Just trying to. But I loved it. And it was really good. And I had an interesting conversation on the plane on the way home that spurred the topic for today. I'm going to scoot this along over here. So me and my friend were sitting, my bandmate was sitting in the plane, and next to us, or in between us, I believe, there was someone telling us their story. They were so upset because the guy that she was interested in or had been talking to for a while was not interested, not in her. So she was telling us, yeah, I don't know what his, problem is. We've been talking every day, and now he's just pulling away. He doesn't want to be, what's going on? And I said, well, did he tell you very clearly where he stands? He's like, yeah, he doesn't want to be a friend anymore. I said, well, that's pretty clear, at least he's honest. That's good now. I said, how long have you been talking to each other? She said 2 months. So I said, oh, that's not very long. It's better now than later, right? And she's like, yeah, but I can't believe him. And by the way, I have to tell you, she's Cuban. Her cultural background, very Cuban. So she's like, I can't believe him. How could he do this to me? I made him my grandmother's soup. And I'm like, what does that mean? She's like, my grandmother used to make this special soup for my family. And ever since my grandmother passed away, I would make this soup for only family. And I made him my soup. She's like, I even had him come over and I put a glass of water next to the picture of my grandma. And I brought it into the kitchen while I cooked the soup. I was like, wow, that's intense. No wonder. But I was thinking, isn't that special? Wow. I've never done that. Talk about culture of heart, right? I like the idea of building the culture of heart. American culture comes from a mix of cultures, right? It's not just one particular. When you go to New York, you can sense a little bit of Jewish. You can sense a little bit of Italian. You can feel the Italian and the Jewish, and you can feel the Irish too. And you can feel others mixing themselves in. So I was thinking, well, building a culture of heart could be kind of like that, where you get to pick and choose. So if I could choose what culture of heart could look like someday for me, even though I'm not Cuban, I might steal this part of the culture where to make my grandmother's soup, I would put a glass of water next to her picture. I was like, that was such a funny picture in my mind. It stayed with me all week, or last few days at least. So you can't just, take grandmother's soup and then just say, no, I'm not interested in being your friend anymore. It was a big deal. But, I asked her, well, that he's made it very clear, right? And I said, so what's going on? Why are you not letting go? And she said, well, this guy, he's always had health problems. And I just like taking care of him. I said, well, doesn't that sound like maybe you have a little bit of a, like the savior complex? I told her, like you just want to save the guy. You like fixing it and you like save. She's like, yeah, I know. That's exactly what it is. She knew. So she knew that her relationship was not healthy to begin with. And she knew that this guy had been very clear about his feelings. So I thought that was an interesting topic. I was thinking, so many times in life, you actually do know the answers. You do know the answers to whatever it is you're facing. You know, but sometimes you just don't look at it so much, right? You kind of know. For me, I relate it to different parts of my life where you just had to make a gut feeling decision. And I was thinking about that. The biggest decisions in your life are made by gut feelings, gut instincts. There's no manual on whether to say yes to a marriage proposal or whether or not to kick your roommate out because he's not paying rent. I did that. Actually, that was my story. I had to do that twice because I've had so many roommates in New York. And this guy, I think I've told you about him once before, but I'll reiterate it one more time. He quit his job at Starbucks where we were both working, and he quit and decided to be a full-time poker player. I think I've told you about this guy. He stopped paying his rent to me because I had the apartment. 2 months go by, and he's like, "Man, Joe, I'm just down on my luck, man. But I think I'm feeling lucky." I'm like, that's not comforting, man. When I got a rent to pay, doesn't matter if you're feeling lucky. You gotta find a way. And I let it go on much too long. Actually, I had a feeling in my gut right when he quit Starbucks to be a full-time poker player. I had a feeling something was gonna go wrong. Doesn't that sound like it's gonna go wrong? Could you get an apartment very easily like that now? What do? Oh, I play online video game poker. It would be very hard to get. So I knew deep, like underneath, but then there was all these other layers of, well, I trust him. Well, he's a smart guy. Well, he's probably gonna do well. And then the justification brain takes over. But the initial reaction was, oh boy, this ain't good. And there's so many times in my life where I realized you did have that feeling right away. And there's all kinds of all kinds of studies that show your first thought is like 80% more accurate than your second or third thought on an issue. Your gut reaction. And I was thinking about the gut. I was thinking God must talk to your gut. Because when you have a gut feeling, it's like more strong and more clear than your brain. Your brain can think of like several arguments on both sides, but your gut has a very distinct feeling. And I saw a study the other day. Actually, it was an old clip of a PBS talk show. You know how they used to have those guys on PBS? And they said that there's brain cells in 2 places of your body. There's special cells, that's brain cells, and it's only in your brain, and it's also in your gut, in your stomach. So believe it or not, there are brain cells in your stomach right now. And so it's interesting, it's kind of like a second brain, this stomach, It's very fascinating. So the sensation that you have as an actual nauseous or some kind of feeling in your stomach is literal. And it's an extension of your brain. It might even be a more, I don't know, who knows? Maybe it's a more spiritual or more connected part to another sense that maybe your intellectual brain doesn't tap into as much. And so I wanted to talk about this. Actually, I didn't have the quote up here, but I'll show it to you guys. There's a story in the Bible where Jesus told his disciples, don't think about it. Actually, don't worry about it and don't think about it. And it was when the disciples had to go explain themselves in front of a court, a bunch of officers, civil officers, Pharisees. So I'll read you the quote. Luke, this is book of Luke, chapter 12. And when they bring you unto the synagogues and unto the magistrates and powers, take ye no thought how or what you shall answer or what you shall say. Take no thought to what you should say. For the Holy Ghost shall teach you in the same hour what ye ought to say. So he's saying, don't worry about it. You'll get inspired. You'll say the right thing. And this story reminded me of a story I heard at IPEC when I went to the workshop. I think it was Reverend Kachi giving the lecture. And he said that Father went to go to North Korea, remember? To meet Kim Il-sung. And there's a whole story about how he tried to initiate peace with North Korea decades ago, which is amazing because now we've seen the fruition of that moving forward. So they had to interview him several layers. You know, you don't just get a meeting with Kim Il-sung. You don't just get that. You have to go through several interviews. And one of the interviews was very intense. You had to make a case in front of a judge, in front of a court, of why you should meet with our leader, Kim Il-sung. And the story is that I think it could have been Bo Hee-pak, or I'm forgetting the exact person that was with him at this meeting, but there was one person with him, one of his disciples with him. And he said, don't worry, I've prepared a speech of your life story and why it is appropriate for you to meet Kim Il-sung. So don't worry, I'll talk. When they got to the courtroom, all that went out the window. The plan went out the window. There was no life story. There was no nothing. Actually, Father jumped up and just gave an hour-long lecture about Adam and Eve to the court officers of North Korea. He said, you need marriage, you need blessing, you need, like all this, just blasted them with truth, with his discovery on truth and the nature of God. And this is a very communist, very anti-God kind of country at that point, right? And so they got permitted to meet Kim Il-sung, and later they heard, actually most people are shaking in their boots at that interview, but it was so amazing that Reverend Moon could just tell the truth. What an incredible man of integrity to tell the truth in that situation, not soften it. Oh, this is a very good man from Korea, and he's done, skip all that stuff. He just got inspired. And actually that made such an impression that the meeting actually happened. So I was thinking this, to follow your gut takes guts. Literally, to follow your gut takes guts. Like, I didn't want to kick my roommate out. That took some guts, right? Like, actually, our friendship kind of stopped at that point. So I had to be willing to lose a friend to follow my gut. And I was reminded that my mom told me this one nugget of truth that I want to pass to you guys. And I definitely want to pass to my kids and to anybody I can. And she would tell me, Joe, if you can't trust your conscience, what can you trust? If you can't trust your own conscience, what can you trust? And that was a very good question, and it stuck with me to this day. And I think what's so genius about it is that your conscience and your gut feeling is with you every step of your life, responding instantaneously to every situation in your life. So you can read all the rule books. You can get great instruction from your parents. Hopefully you have a great relationship with your parents and your siblings and your kids. But in the moment of having to make a decision, you're going to check back to your gut more than the brain. So I advise everybody, if you can, remember this lesson from my mom. I think she gave me a good one there. If you can't trust your conscience, what can you trust? And the image in my mind is like a GPS tracker. Because if you take a wrong turn, let's say you pass an exit, your GPS calculates it and tells you how to get back. And actually, your conscience can do that for you. Oh, wow, I made a wrong turn. So in a way, it's kind of healthier to think, let me at least get in tune with my conscience and my gut so that if I'm wavering or if I'm somewhere I shouldn't be, I'll know. One time I got an offer for a job promotion in a band. And it was the weirdest thing. I don't know how to explain this to you. I was approached and they asked me, hey, do you have experience in this and this? Can you step up and get a very significant pay raise? And I was weird. I was so weird. I was like sheepish. I was like, no, I don't know if I can really do that. And I went home and I told Keishu, and I was like, that was so weird. I don't know why did I act like that. That's not me. You guys know me. I'm a blabbermouth. Look at me. I'm a blabbermouth, and I'm pretty outgoing. Why was I so weird? And I felt almost bad about it because, now I'm letting my band down, and I don't know what. And I prayed about it, believe it or not. I prayed about it that night. Actually, I stayed up at night because I was worried about why did I have this weird feeling. And then the voice that kind of responded, the answer that I had was, don't worry, Joe. You responded like that out of your own protection. It was your instinct, and you were right. That was the answer I got. And later, fast forward, I actually found out that I was right, because the next 4 people that they tried to put in that position got so burnt out. They got criticized for doing everything wrong. So it was actually a promotion that wasn't worth taking. Everybody that tried to get it was getting burnt out, criticized, not supported. So I was right. And then me and Casey were like, whoa, that was pretty cool. I had the answer that, don't worry, Joe, we protected you. This is kind of like the voice that came, was we protected you, and we made you weird and sheepish. I'm like, that's so strange. So you have to be able to trust your guts, your gut feeling. Sometimes it just goes completely beyond your own understanding, how you're going to act. And I think actually we're all here because we did trust our gut, and we committed to I guess you could call it the Holy Spirit, the calling. And I want to just reinforce that if you trusted your gut to get you to this point, then you're doing the right thing. Then you're doing the right thing. You can trust it. And the other thing is, when you're trying to control a situation that's out of your control, like let's say it's a spouse that or it's a whatever situation it might be, the thought that occurred to me this morning was, you also have to trust that other people also have a gut. That God, if they're praying and they're working on it, they're looking for an answer, God might give them a gut feeling too. So you can't always win or influence a situation with an intellectual point. Sometimes it has to come from up underneath. So sometimes I pray this now. I pray, God, give me, if you have a signal for me or a feeling that I need to feel, give it to me very loud and clear so that I can hear it. Because otherwise it's too murky and I don't understand which way I should go. So that's a prayer that I pray that I can connect to, because I feel like that's very important. I think I've done pretty good so far. I said yes to the idea of marrying Keishu. We said yes to moving to Florida. You know, some crazy ideas, but they felt like strong gut feelings to me, and I just went with it. And I don't regret it. So you have to trust that other people have that voice too. So if you're like, wow, that person is so lost. Man, that person is difficult. Man, that person is, they're off. Something you can pray is that they can connect to that gut feeling. God is definitely there, working there. I know that, there's so many stories when I trusted my gut and it was right, and also when I went against it and it was wrong. Does anybody know that feeling? They knew, I knew this wasn't going to work. Another thing, before we go, is remember that the bravery part is key, because your gut doesn't really, how should I say this? Your gut really doesn't come to fruition until you act. So if you have a gut feeling, sometimes it takes 2 people to kind of get it out. So one time my dad asked me, I said, hey, Dad, can I go to this music festival or something in San Francisco? My bandmate invited me down there. And he said, sure, but do you really want to go? I think he could sense I was insecure about it. I said, not really, I don't know. And then he said, don't go. So one thing you can do is help other people hear what's on their heart. Like I know a story about somebody asking, hey, do you have a special woman on your heart? Is there somebody that you would like to talk to meet? I mean, do you have someone on your mind? And then that person admitted, yeah, actually I do. And it's so funny how it takes a question from somebody to get that out of them. So I want everybody to just go through their week, hopefully maybe with a little bit of reflection, thinking maybe the answer to something is already there or will come if you just listen. And if your gut has brought you to this point in this room now, then you definitely are on the right track, and you can trust in God. You can trust in your gut, and God talks to your gut, believe it or not. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thank you very much.